All right.
Peace and love, family. How is everyone doing? Welcome to another edition of the RAM Book Club, Resurgence of the African Mind, where we seek to liberate African minds by reading one unit at a time. Of course, you guys know we have started off with the Blueprint for Black Power by Baba Amos Wilson. We have been pushing through, family, pushing through. We're going to be doing chapter 12 this week. My name is Lili La Poete, also known as, of course, Alima Njai. You can go to my site, www.lililapoetespeaks.com, to get the links to join the panel if you would like every week. Or you can also join the active discussion link on YouTube if you prefer. While you're there, if you don't have your copy for Blueprint for Black Power, you can also pick that up while you're there, or you can get a copy of my latest book, Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1, okay, which is also on sale right now, family, so keep that in mind. Chapter 11, last week, family, we went over ideology and the legitimization, of dominance. We talked about the ideology process. We talked about media in the ideology process, the Black media. We talked about the Black bourgeoisie, the Black political system, and the need for a Black political system. This week, we're going to read half of chapter 12, because chapter 12 is a long one. So We're going to read half, family, and we're going to be touching on the African American community as a colony, economic segmentation, white American and African American economics in post-industrial America, the echoes of decline, U.S. competitiveness, lapses, lags, and losses, American decline, Black decline, industrial and governmental policy, jobs moving abroad, and the powerlessness of government to resolve human problems. Once again, my name is Lili La Poete Speaks, and we're going to let the queens on the panel introduce themselves.
Peace and power, family. I want to say Hotep, Alafia, Amani, Abidi Fahode. To all of the viewers, my name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as dr.maat.msu. I am the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions, the executive producer of Meltrek, and I'm also adjunct professor over at the School of Engineering. I teach digital communications, wireless communications, and next semester I'll be teaching signal processing. I love this book club. We meet every Sunday at 7 p.m. And I'm telling you, we have some powerful and very, very informative discourses. And I'm missing the brothers tonight. Usually we have an entire panel filled with brothers.
I know.
And I know, and the brothers, like Sister Alima said, or she said, maybe the wives kind of shut them down tonight and say, you're not going to do this Black Power stuff tonight. So anyway, we're missing your presence, brothers. I know you're catching in the archive. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to my sister Camille.
Peace and blessings. Black Power, Ashe. My name is Camille Gaynor Jones. I'm a drummer, a producer. I'm also a teacher. And I am honored to be on the panel every week. I love this discourse we have here. Blueprint for Black Power, and I hope everyone that's watching and that stops by the site is enjoying it as well, and that you're also getting a lot of information like I am, and learning a lot about the politics and the situations that have caused caused us to be in the situation that we are in, and that it is not our fault. So yeah, I love all sisters on the panel, Dr. Oya Mayat, Sister Lili, and missing the brothers. I don't know where's that testosterone tonight. We need the warriors in the piece. Hopefully they're gonna come on through. We're gonna get into this chapter.
Yes, let's do it.
Absolutely. And oh man, I just wanted to say one thing, and I might just make this like a meme or something. There's no such thing as an ignorant revolutionary. I'm gonna say that again. There's no such thing as an ignorant revolutionary. I see a lot of brothers and sisters, or I hear a lot of brothers and sisters professing to want to change this system. But Sister Alima and I were building offline, and we were just saying, how can you change a system that you don't understand? And see, Blueprint for Black Power is really a blueprint for Black Power. And in giving us this blueprint, he teaches us how this system works. Because we got to remember that only systems can combat systems. So we need to build a system. If we're truly tired and we want to get free from the system that is oppressing and exploiting and even, you know, annihilating us, then we have to build a counter system, right? A system that will counterbalance this system. Well, how can I build a system to counterbalance a system that I do not understand? Okay. So that's what I love about Blueprint for Black Power. Dr. Amos Wilson, or Baba Amos Wilson, is teaching us how this system works, the different processes by which we're being controlled, and the different bases of power. And so even in this chapter, he drops a lot of jewels. So let's get into it, Queens. I'm ready to rock and roll. I just wanted to add that. We say that we want to change. People don't want to study. People don't want to study.
Like people that say tired of slave movies. I'm like, well, you don't even understand slavery.
Right. And you don't even know what happened.
Right.
You know.
Like, really?
Mm-hmm. All right. So Sister Alima.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Okay, so in the first paragraph, you know, Baba is talking about how us being elected to higher offices, that's not necessarily going to help our situation here in America, because he says that for a while, hundreds of African Americans may be fortunate enough to attain positions of influence and affluence in America. Millions of average African Americans are marginalized and impoverished simultaneously. And that's very true. So we may have this perception that seems like overall, like African Americans have really moved up and are really doing better and well, when actually, if you look at the statistics, it hasn't been a big increase. Not even since Baba wrote this book, there hasn't been a huge increase in wealth as far as African American community.
Absolutely, sis. And in Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, she refers to that as Black exceptionalism. She said what we're seeing is Black exceptionalism. So while
New Jim Crow?
Yeah, in the book, Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, she dedicates, that's a great one. It's a great work. But in that book, she refers to that, sis, as Black exceptionalism. So like you said, I mean, we see the Oprah Winfrey's, the Jay-Z, Beyonce, and these superstars. And even though we, you know, so they give us the illusion that we're progressing when in fact we're regressing. So for example, I don't know if you remember Brother Tawola on one of our previous shows, he brought up an article that was published by the New York, I think it was New York Daily Times or New York Times. And in that article, it was saying that African-American people are the only ethnic group that has not advanced since 2000. In fact, we has regressed by $2,000.
Wow.
And so, like you said, we may see these celebrities and see the luxurious of lifestyles that they're living, but the vast majority of us are piss poor. One out of 4 Black households live in poverty right now. So Michelle Alexander refers to that as Black exceptionalism. Let's go forward, sis.
Okay, so Baba goes on to say in the next paragraph, ultimately, the power of office reflects the power of the constituency it represents and which supports it. As long as the African American community is relatively weak, so will be its representatives, no matter how high their offices. And this community will remain relatively weak as long as it remains in relative economic disorder, and will not amass and effectively utilize significant wealth. The greater power and influence of Jewish Americans, the growing power and influence of Korean Americans in Los Angeles and New York City, and other ethnic minorities in America, despite their relatively small populations and national voting numbers compared to much large population and voting populations of the African American community, clearly indicate that power and influence are born of effective social organization, and the effect use of organized wealth compared to that of ineffective social organization, unorganized wealth, and sheer population size. So I thought that that was interesting, because what Baba is saying is that it's not about how many people, your numbers is not the representation of your wealth or the representation of what you can and can't do. And Black people, you running out and voting to the polls, it still doesn't reflect in our everyday to-day lives.
Right. No, it doesn't. And that's a fact. And then people try to make you feel guilty, sis, when you don't vote.
That's
right. Like someone died for you to vote. Someone lost their lives. People marched. People sacrificed for you to vote. And I think that our ancestors just didn't know any better, Sister Alima.
Right.
I don't think.
I think, well, they thought that participate,
Right.
Dominant culture, you know, the things that they have out here, they thought that, you know, that was going to, you know, bring us up. But that's, you know, they were tricked.
I think I kind of choose to look at it a little differently, because it's like what they were fighting for in essence were their rights to be able to do what other human beings can do. Right. I don't think in essence it was necessarily the focus was on voting, because they fought in all aspects of racism. So that was just one of the aspects and one of the hurdles of racism that they had to overcome.
Yeah, and I think that they thought that voting was an instrument, sis.
Yeah, they did.
That they thought that they can use voting as an instrument, like you said, to gain some of these rights. Like you said, just to be human. You know what I mean? Right. I think they thought that voting would be an instrument to do so, but you know, Dr. Amos Wilson clearly says that it's you know, effective use of organized wealth and effective, you know, in social organization is what will garner you that power and that influence.
That's right.
Well, they wanted the black dollar, you know.
Exactly.
We had our own systems and things. So they basically tricked us, you know. It's always like a trick. It's always like, okay, right, you can come in our stores and you can sit at the, you know, lunch counters. You're going to be siphoning all the money out of your community. And there's always going to be a downside to what we're doing as far as like, you know, underfunding your communities, underfunding your schools and things like that. But we're getting your money. How they were tricked.
That's right. And I think that deprivation, that lack of being able to participate in a lot of things, it kind of reflects today in how we have to spend, and we got to have this, we got to have that. You know, I just wonder if some of that stems from us not being able to do so much, that now we are able to do certain things that we don't really know what to do with our wealth. We don't know what to do with the money. You know, we just don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, we don't know what to do. We don't understand the system.
Right.
You know? And then we're educated by them. So, you know, we're not, it's not like certain things are being instilled in all of our children.
Right.
Enough of our children to understand that you need a black politic, and you need to, you know, work together and help build up one another. They think that spending their money with any and everybody is all right, but on the real side, nobody does that for, you know.
Only us. Right.
So it's like a low self-esteem issue. That's one of the low self-esteem. You be attacked about your color and where your standards of living, or why the black communities work. You hear black people parroting the same things you hear.
That's right.
People say about us, and that shows me that they don't really understand the system and how we're in. So, you know, it's like it's low self-esteem, you know.
Absolutely. I agree with you more, sis.
I agree.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, sis. And I know that Dr. Wilson goes on to talk about how control over important economic resources and the ability to make economic decisions impact the lives of others, permit those who own or control these resources to wield a considerable amount of power.
That's right.
Goes on to, he quotes Thomas Dye, and he quotes Thomas Dye throughout the text. But Thomas Dye says, control of economic resources provides a continuous and important base of power in any society. Economic organizations decide the basic economic question of who gets what. Deciding who gets what entails deciding what will be produced, how it will be produced, how much will be produced, and how much it will cost, how many people will be employed, who will be employed, and what their wages will be, how the goods and services that are produced will be distributed, what technology will be developed, what profits will be made, and how they will get distributed, how much money will be available for loans, and what interest rates will be charged, how fast the earnings will grow, and so forth. So it seems like whoever controls the economic resources rules.
That's right.
And so, you know, I totally understand. Now I understand what Dr. Claude Anderson is talking about in his book, Power Economics. And says that's another text that I would like to eventually, read with the book club. Power Economics. So whoever controls the economic resources has the power. So Dye goes on to define an economic system as consisting of institutions and processes by which a society produces and distributes scarce resources. All right. So then he goes on to say, he adds that where resources are scarce, some scheme must be created to decide who gets what.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, the African American community has not appropriately addressed and resolved the problem of economic scarcity, which prevails within it. This problem distorts all of this, and I had this underlined, distorts all of its social and personal relations, social institutions, and general well-being, as well as weakens its power relations with other ethnic groups.
Mm-hmm.
If African American community, so we got to understand that our economic problems will cause social problems. That's what he wanted to say. Our economic problems will cause social problems and personal problems. All of these things are inextricably bounded. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it says if African American community is to maximize its political economic power, then it must maximize its wealth through the organization of an economic system by which it can acquire, produce, and distribute economic resources in such ways as to provide for its own needs and can use them in pursuit of its own political interests in the nation and the world. So Dr. Amos Wilson is saying we have to build our own economic system.
That's right.
Right? But in order to do that, sis, we got to start supporting each other.
That's right.
I mean, we talk about this a lot on this platform, how Black people need to support each other. And I know, sis, you talk about it a lot, even on your Facebook page. You talk about how we need to support each other. And that's where it starts. Brothers and sisters produce a service or a good. And then you have brothers and sisters who purchase this service and good and then go tell other brothers and sisters about it. And then, hopefully it gets to the point where now we're supplying and buying, with one another. And so that's how and then we had to establish, of course, national and international, relationships with other Africans.
That's right.
But that's where it starts, sis. But right now, it's like we have to recondition ourselves to support ourselves. And I mean, I know that doesn't make sense, or it should make sense, but we have to recondition ourselves to support ourselves. We've been conditioned for, centuries to depend on other people to supply our wants and needs. And so I think that, and they've made their products so accessible. Like it's easier to just go into a 7-Eleven or a Rite Aid or a Walgreens and grab some toilet paper, right? Rather than get on, the internet and go to freedompaper.com and order a box of toilet paper. They make it so convenient, sis. But in my household, we go out of our way to support Black-owned businesses, from toilet paper to paper towels down to True laundry detergent. That's where it starts. We have to support ourselves. And I remember a few years back, Brother Anka said on the show, he said, if you want to know who you support, just look around in your house. Look at the products that you spend. Look at how you spend your money, and that will tell you who you support. And most of us do support racism and white supremacy. That's what we support. And we don't support each other.
Well, also we're taught that that's being racist. Supporting yourself. Everyone else supports themselves, but we're racist when we do that.
Absolutely. Like you said, everyone else does it,
Right.
but when we do it.
It's like a brainwashing,
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy, just the system itself.
Well, on page 248, Baba goes on to say, he just reiterated what you queens were just saying. He says the full economic empowerment of African American communities everywhere requires that their internal structural dynamics and external relationships be radically transformed. So the way in which we conduct business, as Dr. Maat was just saying, we have to transform that. We have to switch it up. Our dynamics, we have to internally switch it up in order to see something on the outside. So I definitely agree. Okay, going on. Next paragraph.
Yes, I'm sorry, what's this?
We reason that by conceptually looking at the African American community as a colony, a nation within a nation, along with viewing African nations and large African populations in predominantly non-African nations as neo-colonial nation states and nations within nations, respectively, we can both more simply and productively describe their current poor economic circumstances and powerlessness, as well as prescribe for their remediation.
Wow. I don't think most of us get that we are like a colony.
Right.
Out of America. I think we really believe, like I had a one of my male friends, he came over one day and we were like talking and I kept referring to myself as an African and him an African, and he was like, I'm not an African, I'm an American. And I said, wow, okay. So we really believe, you have most of us, we really have been bamboozled, you know, to think that we are full-fledged citizens. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, so do you really, I said, so what about if you go to court? You know, I said, let's look at the judicial rulings, right? Michelle Alexander, in her book, The New Jim Crow, she provides us with a study called the San Jose Mercury. It was a study conducted by the San Jose Mercury News. And what they did was they took 700,000 criminal cases and they matched the cases by, now criminal cases, Black, white, and Latino. And what they did was they matched these cases by criminal history and I think it was criminal history and something else. But needless to say, this study proved that whites made out better in throughout the entire process than African Americans or Latinos, right? I'm just using that example just to demonstrate that if we were full-fledged citizens, or we were viewed as citizens or viewed as Americans, you would see some equality there. You see bias. You're not considered or viewed as a full-fledged American citizen. You're not. They don't look at you as an American. They look at you as a Black man. That's how they view you. You know, they look at you as such. So, you know,
American is not even a race. So he said, I'm not African, I'm American. Right. So what are you?
Right. Yeah, he sure is.
Right. That's crazy. It's like
nationality, but she's so right. But he was like, I'm not African. He's like, I just consider myself an American. Yes, he did.
Okay.
Yes, he did. And I said, okay, brother. I said, until you that.
Sis, where'd you get that shirt from?
Tyreek.
Goon. I know it.
Tyreek. I feel some type of way, okay? You know that's my husband. You know I'm gonna need that shirt.
Yes, it's on Tariq Nasheeb's website. Right. His 1804 website, sis.
Here you go.
Oh, you got it?
Crazy.
Oh, sis, I got it. I have it. I have the DVD, but it's still in the plastic because I'm gonna have a movie night at my place and invite the whole fam over. We're going to eat, watch it, and kind of, you know, kick it and discuss it. So I haven't cracked it yet. Sister Camille, do not tell me.
I can tell you.
Don't tell me, because you told me a little bit on the last show.
Oh, I did? I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I want to watch it too.
Yeah, you were saying how like mulattoes, how they brought like the heads of their fathers on a plate and made them choose.
Oh, yeah.
Like, don't.
The heads of their husbands.
Yeah. Oh, it was the head of their husbands. Yeah, man. So. Yeah. Don't tell me about it.
One of the French generals. But I got to get that T-shirt, that Ogun.
Oh yeah. So anyway, so he's asking us, or he's saying that they're going to conceptualize the African community as a colony. We always say. So I know he goes on.
Now we're about to start into the African American community as a colony, queen.
Okay, cool. So he's saying that he said, the virtual exclusion of the African American community from full participation in the white dominated political economic system and its practically total physical, residential, and social separation from the white American community. The general, tenuous, if not hostile relations between the two communities in effect serve to define them as de facto nations sharing the same continental space. I get that. Coroner Commission report attests to this in its pointedly famous quotation: the United States is moving towards two societies, one Black, one white, separate and unequal. To continue present policies is to make permanent the division of our country into two societies, one largely Negro and poor, located in the central cities, the other predominantly white and affluent, located in the suburbs. Now, we gotta remember, sis, this is not true anymore. They're really moving a lot of, not quite. They're moving folks from the city
into the suburbs.
Yeah, and a lot of white folks are moving back into the inner cities. But the Coroner Report was published in 1958. So this is what they saw during that time. And during that time, the white folks did live in the suburbs and we lived in the inner cities.
Right.
But we gotta remember, we lived in the inner cities because a lot of our, our fathers, our parents were blue collar workers.
Right.
And so the manufacturing jobs were in the inner city. Right. And so that's why a lot of Black folks lived in the city, close to get to work, So a lot of the manufacturing plants were around the different cities and the white folks lived in the suburbs. So anyway, on the basis of the division and separateness of the Black and white American communities, as well as the gross political and economic inequalities which inhere between them, we believe that the relationship of the white to Black community can be more accurately and productively described as that between an imperial nation and its economically dependent colony. Facts. So he quotes, if you guys want to add or you want me to keep going?
Go ahead, Queen.
So it says William K. Tabb, he's quoting William K. Tabb, the economic relations of the ghetto to white America closely parallel those between third world nations and the industrially advanced countries. Tabb goes on to specify two key relationships that must exist to support an analogy of the African American community as colony. One, economical control and exploitation. That's a fact.
Yep.
And two, political dependence and subjugation.
Yep.
All right. So then he goes on to say, he provides us with a description of economic characteristics of a typical African American ghetto. He said readily fits that of a typical less developed neo-colonized country. So he's taking the he lists, oh my gosh, this is, sis, do you want to read this or do you want us to keep on going?
Oh, I like to read from A.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's read it. Let's hit one at a time.
Yeah,
let's go.
This is powerful here. A, relatively low per capita income, high birth rate, a small, weak middle class, low rates of increase in labor productivity, capital formation, domestic savings, and a small monetized market. B, an economy heavily dependent on external markets where demands for its human and material resources are relatively static or declining. Relatively high desire to consume the products. We'll say that again. A relatively high desire to consume the products enjoyed by wealthier populations to increase the quantity and value of imported goods and services over and above the quantity and value of goods and services with human capital exported. Its major export is unskilled labor.
Wow.
Page 250, D. Much of the small modern sector of the economy is owned by outsiders. Local entrepreneurship is limited as is managerial know-how. Local markets are relatively limited. Business lack capital, savings rates are low, and what is saved is usually not invested. Of credit, welfare payments, i.e. governmental transfers, are needed to help pay for the community's requirements. Important jobs in the local public economy, firemen, policemen are held by outsiders. G, the economic and social infrastructure are relatively disarticulated, i.e. fragmented, disorganized, and H, the cultural and intellectual elite are penetrated, i.e. the community's most influential leaders, opinion shapers, and molders ideologically identify with the ruling elite of the dominant culture, economic group, and are dependent on a continued relation with them.
You know, I love this one right here, Sister Alima. Go
Get
ahead.
into it. I've been waiting. Get into it.
Let's go ahead. Sister Camille.
Establishment structured by the political, social, and economic dynamics of the dominant group as to perpetuate poor or inadequate education and training of the community populace, thereby perpetuating its underdevelopment, non-competitiveness, and dependency.
And that's exactly what we have. And that's exactly what American public education, this is exactly what it is.
Well, it's indoctrination. It indoctrinates people.
Absolutely.
You know, a way of thinking and a way of, you know, not developing yourself, but developing the dominant culture. You work towards, you know, enhancing them. I mean, without even knowing and understanding that.
Absolutely, sis. And I was just taken back. I said, wow. So the African American community is equivalent to, or can be described as, a less developed neo-colonized country. Mm-hmm. Like the description matches. I mean, it was kind of painful, to be honest, to read this, you know, like, wow, you know what I mean?
It was so true.
I said, this is us. You know, when I read A through I said, this is us all of the way. The way we spend our money, our economic and social infrastructures, our culture, our education, even when you said the relatively high desire to consume products enjoyed by the wealthier population. That's why we go out here, we spend our money with Gucci.
Exactly.
You know, we want to buy Benzes and BMWs and, you know, Lexuses and all of that. And we want to enjoy it and we want to look the part, but we aren't the part. Many of us are broke and trying to catch up, you know?
Right.
But, okay, so he goes on at the bottom of page 250 to say, we must take care and not adopt the same fallacious tendency so prevalent among Eurocentric economists and social scientists, i.e., to treat the African community as a self-contained unit whose political, social, or economic system can be analyzed out of the context of its domination by the larger white American community. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the characteristics of underdevelopment listed above will be erroneously identified as reflections of the inherent characteristics of African Americans themselves, mm-hmm. as the absence of certain social values, attitudes, beliefs, levels of aspiration and motivation, or other personal and communal inadequacies. An equally fallacious approach prevalent among Eurocentric economists is to reduce the problem of the underdevelopment of the African American community and the worldwide African community as well to the prevalence of an aggregation of factors such as those listed above, as if they are the causes rather than the effects of white imperial domination and exploitation.
Fact.
The way the African economic system has been and is structured is directly related to the history and current nature of the social economic relations between white and Black American communities, and to the ways in which the African American community has been and is affected by national and international industrial and economic policies of the white-run U.S. government. The essence of the African American economy is its subjugation to white American economic imperialism. Huh?
Warfare.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, that was. So he's basically saying that when we analyze our economic condition, we got to analyze it in the context of being exploited and dominated by another group of people. We just can't look at it as a separate thing.
Because if you don't, then it's going to just make it seem like you said, that we are just bums that don't want nothing better for our lives. And, you know, we are in the position we're in because we didn't pick ourselves up our bootstraps.
Exactly. That's why context is important.
That's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you guys, you go ahead and continue. I'm highlighting that.
Okay. Page 251, Queens, in the middle of the page. The dominant countries. I'm here where he said he defines dependency as such. He says dependency is a situation in which a certain group of countries have their economy conditioned by the development and expansion of another economy to which the former is the subject. The dominant countries have a technological, commercial, capital resource, and social political predominance over the dependent countries. This permits them to impose conditions of exploitation and extract part of the domestically produced surplus. And it's interesting that Baba keeps giving us these examples. He's talking about the country. So he's still comparing the countries to the African-American community. And what he just said is still very true.
Right.
Okay, moving further down. The economic underdevelopment of the African-American community cannot be vertically traced to alleged innate or inculturated lacks and deficiencies in its constituents, or to pre-existing defects in its fiscal and financial infrastructure. Just as with the historical and contemporary underdevelopment in Africa, the conditioned dependency of the African-American community can be traced precisely to the transatlantic slave trade, to external and internal colonialism and neo-colonialism as rationalized by white economic and social racism. Theodore Cross, 87, accurately describes the deleterious effects of internal race-based American colonialism on Black economic development when he contends that racial prejudgment as power is a form of coercive power, working in the marketplace for labor, goods, and capital. He goes on to say racial prejudgment occurs. He's talking about buyers and sellers. And he says that racial prejudgment occurs on the buying side when the user of the labor, capital, goods, or service rules out or refuses to use the work, money, goods, or services of another race. On the selling side, someone who offers work, capital, goods, or services on the market declines to consider those offers because that person is of a different racial group, which we know that happen, we know that happens all the time still, even to this day. So he says that both of these processes of making economic judgments may be called primary forms of race discrimination. Whenever the racial prejudgment occurs, coercive power is at work because the judgment tends to limit or block the freedom of the outcast person group to enter certain jobs or places where economic benefits may be obtained. Finishing up, he says, whenever members of a racial majority reject or ostracize members of their own group who agree to trade with a castigated racial group, this secondary form of racial prejudgment is a particularly potent form of economic power because it reinforces and makes certain that no one will depart from their originally racial biased economic decision.
Oh, goodness gracious, I'm up here.
They ostracize everybody. They own too. Oh, you want to work with them? Okay, all right.
Right. Then we're going to.
Yeah, they make it
like they force you to play along. You know what I mean? Either you play along or you get ostracized too.
right.
Absolutely. And Isabel Wickerson talks about that in her book, Warmth of Another Sun. She provides us with like three narratives or the biography of three different, three people during the Great Migration, which took place between 1915 and 1970. And she, with one of the people, they were the guy, I think he was from somewhere in the South. And he migrated from the South to Los Angeles, California. And he was saying that when he stopped in, he wanted to stop at a hotel because he wanted to sleep. He wanted to shower. He wanted to sleep, get some rest. And in the book, Isabel Wickerson stated that the hotel owners told him, they were like, we would give you a room, but if we do that, then our community is going to ostracize us. No one's going to buy from us. So these white folks wanted to help him out. They wanted to give him, a room, but they were so scared that they would be ostracized from their community. So, when I read this paragraph, on page 252, my mind went back to that book, Warmth of Another Sun, where the brother was traveling from the South to California, and the motel owners didn't want to give him a room because they said they were afraid of being ostracized by the community. And so they didn't give him a room. So he ended up sleeping in his car, he said. So I thought about that. So like you said, if you don't play, they force you to play along. Even if you don't want to play along, they force you to play along.
That's right.
So then he goes on to say that Cross goes on to note that the white, did you want to go, Sister Camille?
No, I'll take the next page.
Okay.
Bless you.
So thank you. So Cross goes on to note that the white majority used the forces of terrorism. There goes Tulsa, Oklahoma. Cross goes on to note that the white majority used the forces of terrorism and intimidation to regiment the activities of Negroes and define the acceptable limits of their economic, social, and political aspiration. They also enlisted the powers of the federal, state, and local governments to physically segregate Negro people and to enforce the limited zones of economic activity, an entry that had been assigned to them. He further notes that through the enlistment of federal, state, and local government power, dominant whites acting as a unified political body embarked on one of the most ambitious programs of social engineering undertaken in the history of the nation, to legislate inferior opportunities and status for Blacks and to legislate superior opportunities and status for them. More, Black America was and is still decapitalized by white Americans' use of skin color as the basis for the restrictive regulation and control of the distribution of capital and capital instruments and the restriction of credit and other forms of financial leverage indispensable to capital formation and to the accumulation of wealth in the United States. When I read that paragraph, I thought about Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he says that these dominant whites enlisted the help of the federal and state and local governments. Remember, I don't know, have you guys seen the Tulsa, Oklahoma documentary on YouTube? It's like 3 of them, and I watched all 3. And I remember the elders in the film, and most of them are ancestors at this point. But they were saying our government shooting at us. Remember, they were like looking at the planes and the helicopters, and they were like, wow, you know, my country, 'tis of thee. They're shooting at us. You know, so these people enlisted the federal, state, and local governments to control our economic activities. Because remember, Tulsa was a growing community. We had hotels, we had real estate, movie theaters, banks, restaurants, and we were doing great. And they wanted to destroy that. And so they did enlist the help of the federal, state, and local government. And I was told that our ancestors were, a lot of them were brutally murdered. Our businesses were burnt down. They said they forced us into, like, I'm gonna call it a convention hall, but some sort of hall, you know, and then, you know, when it was over, they forced the residents to go out there and clean up the mess. So you destroyed our businesses, you killed most of our citizens, and then we had to go outside and clean it up. And that's what that was their testimony on what happened in the Tulsa home. And there's a whole report online. You can buy it on Amazon to get the Tulsa, I think it's called the Tulsa Report, that will, you know, detail what took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But I immediately, when I read this paragraph, I thought about Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's right.
And Tulsa, Oklahoma is just one of many.
Right.
Absolutely.
There's no other group of people here that have had to rebuild as much as we have. You know,
that's right.
Nobody, when Asians came here, nobody went and burnt down their places and
no,
the inhabitants, and you know, so we've been on a warfare for a long, long time. And anytime we you know, build something, that's who we are. It's very creative people. You know, left alone to our own devices, we do our thing. But every time we do something like that, they destroy it.
Absolutely.
So, economic segment, page 253.
Yes.
Oh, this is a powerful paragraph. The history of white racism has been such as to segment the American marketplace between a white imperial economy and a black dependent economy. A segmentation which in effect segregates blacks from the more freely competitive and lucrative economy enjoyed by whites. Thus, the labor and capital economy of the African American community cannot be adequately and correctly explained by orthodox labor and classical economic theory, which assume that the marketplace is perfectly competitive. So when they say that everything is fair and even here, that's a lie.
Right. Not at all.
Thus, the labor and capital economy of the African American community cannot be this means, as Sullivan in 1989 contends, that inner city residents do not compete as equals in the existing labor market. Their access has been blocked itself. Orientation and welfare systems which perpetuate the isolation of inner city residents from sufficient access to decent jobs. A primary market offering relatively high-paying, stable employment with good working conditions, chances of advancement, and equitable administration of work rules, and a secondary market to which the urban poor are confined, decidedly less attractive in all of these respects and in direct competition with welfare and crime for the attachment of the potential labor force. The competitive market, and we're basically given the crumbs to work with.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
In a broader, more general sense, the primary and secondary labor markets are adjunctive segments of parallel dual economies consisting of one, a center economy with a high degree of corporate and bureaucratic organization, great diversification, technically progressive means of production and distribution, and national and international accounts. Two, a peripheral economy which contains firms which are small, dominated by one individual, use outdated techniques of production, and operate in small, restricted markets. The segmented labor market warehouses an inflated pool of marginal and surplus labor which provides relatively low wage, low-cost services to the benefit of the center economy. Labor and economic market functions to produce a largely non-competitive Black labor and entrepreneur community for the economic and political benefit of white labor and capital. So basically, our resources and our creativity goes to benefit the dominant society.
Exactly.
And that's why last Wednesday, this past Wednesday, I went to Bowie State University. Shout out to Brother.
Do you hear that echo?
I think that's Sister Camille. Mute your mic. Let me see something.
I got an echo?
I don't hear it no more.
Hold on, let me.
I don't hear it anymore.
How's that?
It's gone now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I was talking, I did hear echo, sis. But just this past Wednesday, we went to Bowie State University. I went over there with Brother Haki. And we were talking to the college students about how they can use their college degrees for African liberation, right? And what it boils down, and this was my position on it, I said that as African people, we have to redefine success, what our definition of success is. And for I remember the baby boomers when they had children, and my mom is a baby boomer. Their thing was go to school, get your education, get a good job, right? It was never go to school, get an education, and use that education to uplift your family. And I guess uplifting the family and the community was going out here to get a good job. But you're not, what am I trying to say?
You're not creating any generational wealth.
You're not. You're literally maintaining and advancing. You're maintaining white power and you're advancing the interests of white people.
That's right.
And so I just feel like we have to redefine what success is, especially when we're conveying that to our children. What is success? And as I explained to the I don't want to call them young kids, these were young adults. Success is, we can't measure that based on individual aptitude and achievement. Is measured on where we are as a collective. And so, go back to your community, build business, create something, produce something, create, an innovative product or innovative service, build businesses, hire your own, buy from your own. You get what I'm saying? So that was the position that I was coming from, that we had to redefine what success looks like.
That's right.
But anyway, where are we, y'all?
254.
254?
Well, right now we have white American and African American economies in post-industrial America.
Okay, cool. That's my count.
Okay, so the bifurcation or segmentation of the African American marketplace between a predominantly white center business and primary labor economy and a predominantly Black peripheral business as secondary labor economy preserves a continuous drain of income and resources that keep the African American relatively poor and as a whole economically and politically weak. Then he goes on, he starts to talk about the institutions, and he says that these institutions, investment policies, and redlining practices siphon funds out of the Black community and into business loans, mortgages, and other investments elsewhere, with little or no earnings returning to support that community's economy and development. The withdrawal of capital by non-African American owners of inner city housing probably represents the largest flow of wealth out of the community. The drain of income from the African American community derives mainly from the purchase of goods and services produced and sold by outsiders. Outsiders. From spending in stores and business establishments owned and staffed by outsiders. From servicing enormous external debt and credit accounts. The drain of human resources means the hemorrhagic loss of many of the community's most intelligent, capable, and imaginative young people into the progressive sectors, center economy, where rewards are greater and opportunities are wider, leaving the economy of the ghetto, whose chief resource is labor, without many of its best products. From Fussfield and Bates, 84. At the bottom, the effects of industrial decentralization or deindustrialization, increasingly evident since the mid to late 1940s, are therefore concentrated in the intercities, where the character of the local center economy has shifted from an industrial to a post-industrial system of production, from industrial production to human, administrative, financial, information processing, and analytic services. Fussfield and Bates describe the processes of industrial centralization and decentralization. So they go on to talk about the manufacturing process, and they talk about the growth in businesses and services and how it is in contrast to the suburbs and how it is in contrast to the city. And he goes on here in the middle to say that decades of deindustrialization have coincided with important changes in the nature of business enterprise, especially in the large corporation, that brought increasing use of white collar as opposed to blue collar workers, a fundamental shift in the nature of corporation. So therefore, he's saying that a lot of jobs that were typically done by everyday people, they started to switch those occupations up to bring in more people who are, I guess, were more qualified, as they would say, which of course would coincide with a certain level of education and skin color. So in 89, Sullivan says, resulted both in the degradation and of employment conditions for much of the population and the disruption of impoverishment of the inner city neighborhoods. So he's talking about the shifts and the major shift in the economy. And he's saying that that's what happened, the effects of the inner city. Of course, quite naturally, a lot of jobs were lost.
Yes, they were. And I couldn't help but to think about Bethlehem Steel. You guys can Google that. I don't know if you heard of Bethlehem Steel.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, we had a plant here in Baltimore. And my grandmother was telling me that when that plant shut down, a lot of men lost their jobs. She said a lot of them became drug addicts and whiners. Went into like a depression because they were unable to provide for their families. I mean, they've been working in plants for years. And my grandmother said they were making good money. And not to put, peace be upon our soul, not to put a business. I'm being transparent right now with you guys. My grandmother used to date this guy. His name was Mr. Rob, and I think that Mr. Rob is probably an ancestor now. But I remember saying, Grandma, he's a bum. I'm a teenage girl, and I just see this guy who's a drunk. Just, he comes over, he drinks, he's smoking, and he just looked terrible. And I remember, I'm like, Grandma, he's a bum. Why do you want to deal with him? He's a bum. And she said, Dee, that's what my grandmama used to call me, Dee. So she said, Dee, she said, she said, he wasn't always like that, baby. And she told me the history of it. She said that he at one time worked for Bethlehem Steel. He drove a nice Cadillac. He had money. He was able to support himself and look out for her. But once they closed the plant, he fell on hard times. He lost everything. And, more importantly, he lost his ability to take care of himself and, and his family. And so, that's what happened to a lot of our brothers.
That's right.
Now, I see so many on the train, but poverty is designed. You know, that's basically what this is saying. You know, these conditions that we're dealing with, they're all by design. And they know they take all.
Come on in, come on in.
Sissy.
Look at her. Look at her face. Look at her face on the screen.
That just going on and on and on. I broke again?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, dang. Pretty much internet.
Ooh, sis, what you got? Magic Jack? Keep it real.
Oh, man. I told you it's that janky Motorola, man. Motorola is just.
It's all good, sis. It's all good. We got you. So echoes of decline.
Yes.
You want to start us off, Sister Camille?
Yeah. I didn't see a lot in this particular section here, me personally.
Right.
A lot of info, but it was outdated info.
Yes, it was. Right. Yeah, it definitely was outdated. I just, I just had underlined that he called this a permanent. He says that he characterized our economic condition as a permanent economic depression.
Where is that?
Right here on, I'm down at the bottom of page 255, first sentence, where he says the permanent economic depression, which characterizes the African-American community.
Oh,
right?
Here.
Yeah, so it was just, you remember when when the United States went into a recession and Black people, we were like, what recession are y'all talking about? Like, we've been in a recession since we've been over here. Like,
I don't know, because I was seeing on the contrary, I was seeing Black people acting like the shit affected them. And I'm like, you don't got no damn money.
Exactly. Like, we've been in a recession since we've been here.
Exactly.
So it was, but the permanent economic depression, he says, which characterizes the African-American community is in good part, an outcome of American social history, particularly of historical white-Black race relations. All right. But you're right. Other than that, it was pretty much outdated. He talks about World War II. And he said, since World War II, other factors in addition to white American racism have been having an increasingly greater overall negative and more ominous impact on the economic condition and prospects of the African American community. Two of these factors include the relative economic decline of the United States and the global economy, and the dramatically rapid structural changes occurring both within the U.S. and global economies. Right? So he's saying that basically the U.S. economy and the global, economy affected Black people as a whole ever since World War II.
Right.
All right. This goes on to say how, America, how we fell from like the super, I guess, economic structure. How like over the years, I think he says in 1975, he said we just started,
down, right.
Started going down after around.
And that's from selling off all of their major means of profit, selling them off to other countries.
Right.
Absolutely. So he's saying that these dramatic changes in the nature and character of the American and global economy have deep and serious implications for the continuing economic well-being of Black America. Right. All right. So then he goes on to quote from the National Urban League in his annual report, The State of Black America in 1993. And it's just talking about how the U.S., they're no longer considered an economic superpower. And so he's talking about the productivity growth rate. He said that declined. Their real gross domestic product in the United States rose. He said 2.6% per year in the 1980s compared to 2.8% in the 1970s. All right. He talked about the deficit, and he's saying at one point our deficit was $400 billion. But, in the last decade, and remember this book was published in 1998, he's saying that it totaled $1 trillion. Right. He said also in this report, it says that the United States now trails other industrialized countries. So he mentions, Japan, Germany, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Federal budget deficit skyrocketed. Real wage growth has dipped sharply. So it's saying that manufacturing jobs have been especially hit. Family incomes in the U.S. have stagnated, but income inequality has widened. Unemployment rose. He's saying that unemployment rose in the 1980s. Yeah, that was about it, sis. That's all I had for 256 and 257.
Yeah, me too. I didn't even have nothing on 257.
Yeah, all I did was just skim it just now, and I didn't have anything either. Anything for 258, sis?
I just touched on a couple things that just were, I guess, would explain the charts. And he was just talking about African Americans have suffered disproportionately and faced the bleakest prospects. One of the major structural changes in U.S. economy has been its increasingly steady shift from the production of manufactured goods to the production of services. Then he says the continuing loss of manufacturing jobs, of the relatively high wages and job security they provided, has contributed mightily to the growth of an increasingly large Black underclass. It has resulted in the destabilization and destruction of working class and poor Black families, the creation of female-headed families, and in assorted problems prevalent in the inner city today.
Yeah, I underlined that, sis, when he said it created the female-headed families.
Mm-hmm.
I have that underlined.
Me too.
Yeah, how men, they lost their jobs, and again, they were unable to provide.
Right.
So it's like, and even, as Sister Camille said, that's still going on today.
That's right.
It's still going on today.
I like the charts that Baba provides on page 259. And although these statistics, as Sister Maat says, are from, I think this one at the bottom, occupation, was from 92 to 93, but it hasn't changed very much as far as the fields that we still dominate. We pretty much still dominate these same fields. And so he had janitors up here. I guess that's 21%. Correction officers, 23, short order cooks, 23, security guards, 23, vehicle washers, laundry and dry cleaning, hotel maids and housemen, postal clerks, domestic servants, and nursing aides. And then when you look at on the other side and look at the percentages that we rank as far as designers, lawyers, architects, cabinet makers, dentists, commercial pilots, therapists, and geologists and things like that, is very, very low. So we don't represent those areas as far as occupation. And as we know, some of those areas it has increased, especially I would say dentistry. There's a lot of Black dentists. And definitely, of course, bartending, which that's interesting that's up there. Then the next chart, they go on to talk about African American share of the major occupations in 91. And then they have projected growth rates up into 2005. And so as we can see, the leading in 1991 was services. So, and then as you can see, if you go over to what they projected into 2005, leading at that time was technicians and related support. And then following, he had professional specialties, and service, once again, is still a leading occupation that was projected even to 2005, and it's 2017 now, and that's still a leading occupation today of African Americans. Anything to add, Queens?
No, I think that you hit it on the money, sis. So did you have the bottom of page 259 highlighted? I did. Yes. Do you want me to go? Or you want to go, Camille? Sister Camille?
I'll take it.
Okay.
As can be readily surmised.
Oh, Lord.
I'm out again.
Hello.
It was like as soon as she
started. Every time she started to read.
Right.
Every time.
Oh,
damn.
They sabotaged me. They sabotaged me. Am I back? Am I back?
You back, Queen.
You're back. Oh, man.
As can be readily surmised from this review, African Americans are greatly underrepresented in the fastest growing occupations and overrepresented in those having the slowest projected growth. This pessimistic assessment is not helped by the fact that educational status and human capital characteristics of the African American community as a whole are generally very unfavorable relative to its ability to gain its fair share of high growth, high-paying jobs, and its ability to engage in highly compensatory entrepreneurial activities. And other facts that architecture does not bode well for the economic future of African Americans. And I like to read that the economic outlook of Black America, particularly its underclass, is such that one writer concludes, Black Americans have outlived their usefulness. Their raison d'etre to this society has ceased to be a compelling issue. Economic asset, they are considered an economic drag. The wood is all hewn, the water is all drawn. The cotton all picked, and the rails reach from coast to coast. The dishes are put away, and only a few shoes remain to be shined.
No, he didn't.
True.
I mean, let's think about that though, sis. We've gone from a manufacturing based economy to a service economy now. So they don't need you. I mean, hell, you know, look at Amazon right now. Amazon, I hear an echo. I don't even know why. Do you guys hear echo?
Yeah, it's gone now. It's you, sis. Every time you start talking, sometimes it come up.
Really? Okay. I don't know what's going on because I don't got nothing open. Yeah, I don't have another window open either. Let me check.
You got your YouTube open?
Nope. I just have my email is up. Yeah, my email is up, and that's
why I said I can't wait till we find something other than this Hangout thing.
Yes. But sis, I even lost my train of thought just now. What was I saying? We went from
a manufacturing. Now we do service.
And they don't need, I mean, you can, look at Amazon. It's almost to the point where not even almost to the point, you can order groceries online. I just don't because I like to look at my fruits and vegetables.
And then, now they got that service now, sis, where they gotta, it's like they go, if you order something, then they'll go in your house. So it's this little key thing that you can get set up in a camera, right? And so they basically, you give them access to your house. And so if you order things like groceries and stuff like that, instead of you having to be there, they'll go in your house and like put the stuff away, girl. I said, you got to be kidding me.
You're right.
Now wait, it's just going to be a matter of time before that system gets hacked and people get robbed.
Yeah, right. That's true.
I'm not interested.
Yeah, I'm not interested either.
I'm good. I can put my own damn groceries away.
But think about how many cashiers, even when we get in the market now, right?
Exactly.
So think about that. Those jobs will be gone. And so they don't really, there's not a need for us anymore.
That's right.
And plus they want to bring in people that are not going to fight the system, that are not going to speak out about it for people that, hence, so since we have such a low employment, why do you need to bring in low-skilled workers? So they want people that's just going to do what they're told.
That's right, Queen.
And not realize they have rights or fight for their rights or wage increases, whatever. They're just going to, show up and do whatever and take whatever abuse. And so that's why we're also, outdated and not a working class that's needed. Because we're the only people that can't be, when they kick you out the country.
Oh, we can't be deported.
Be deported.
Oh, they mad. They would have deported all of our asses a long time ago. But I'm fine with it. Deport us now. Just give me enough money to sustain myself where I'm going. I'm fine. Take me back home to Cameroon. I'll go.
Just give us our reparations so we can.
That's what I'm saying, and let us go.
Yeah,
I'm fine with
our reparations so we can repatriate. How about that?
I get the hell up out of here. I have no problem with that. I'm leaving anyway, so I don't have no problem with that. Y'all got 4 more years of me here, and I'm out of here.
Oh, sis, you gonna take me with you?
If you want to, but your mother, I don't know. You close with your mother. You ain't gonna leave her here, and I don't know if I'm gonna leave that church.
Somebody said in the chat, please deport me.
I am so a mama's girl. I am such a big baby. My mother's like at 36. I'm a big baby, man. I gotta. Oh man, yeah. I want to repatriate though. I'm telling you, sis, it's in my heart, sis.
I know it is. I know it is.
I just want to put my mother. I call her Ann. I want to put Ann in a suitcase and just bring her with.
Sis, what you need to do is get a reader, because if it comes out in your reading that you may have a bigger mission than you may supposed to be. You may supposed to lead. You know what I'm saying? You can't stay away from your mission because of your mother.
Facts. That's facts.
Sister Lily, where you going?
And since you said that,
I'm not sure yet, Queen.
The Bible Hour will be back this week, right?
Yeah, Odun. I think he just got back today, if I'm not mistaken.
Hey, sis.
I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Let's hit him up tomorrow and see what's going on. I definitely.
Okay, we can. Matter of fact, it'd be better to hit up. We'll hit up Babalosa.
Let's do it. Let's do it tomorrow.
Get you a reading too, Sister Camille.
Yes, indeed. All right, I'm with it.
Yes.
All right, I'll do it. I gotta teach tomorrow. I'll be back after 4.
That'll work. We'll figure it out. But let's move on to I think this is like the last. No, it's not the last section. It's like a couple of subsections before that. But we're winding down. American decline, Black decline. All right. I'm not gonna lie, Sister Alima. I had this entire look at Camille. Look, Sister Camille. Look.
That's what.
Like I had the whole page highlighted. It was just so much information. It was a lot of information, but I know that in this section, he's talking about the change in the American economy, and he's saying that the high defense burden is the cause of our economic damage. So he's saying that we spent billions of dollars on war, right? We spent billions of dollars on military security. And while we spent all of this money on military security, our consumer economy has declined. So let's go into it. While many analysts may attribute America's relative economic decline to foreign competition, other analysts have given greater priority to other factors. Of course, the overwhelming balance of payment problem, unprecedented trade deficits, the growing non-competitiveness of much of American industry must be in part held accountable for many of the economic problems plaguing the United States. However, as much, if not more, of these problems can also be attributed to white America's external and internal policies having to do with power and race relations. Both the attempt by white America to maintain its economic and military dominance in the world and racial domination in the nation has worked to negatively skew and weaken its overall economy and jeopardize the living standards of large segments of its native population, including the African American community. On a global level, white America's attempt to maintain, expand, and protect its worldwide political economic empire is based on its development and maintenance of a permanent war economy. I remember years ago, I was told by a brother, he was like, whenever there's a war, that's where they make the money. That's where they generate the money from the wars. So anyway, he says to develop and maintenance a permanent war economy. While there's evidence that military spending associated with war might temporarily invigorate an economy, as did war production during World War II, a permanent war economy, i.e. permanent war production, has essentially been the case of the U.S. economy since World War II. They ultimately debilitate or distort it. So he goes on to say that the United States has diverted gargantuan amounts of money, manpower, and resources into military productions, the inevitable byproducts of which have been the neglect, depletion, deterioration, and exhaustion of vast areas of the civilian economy, its industrial base, and the underlying infrastructure. Economic dislocations occur in a war economy, which tends over time to retard its ability to produce products of ordinary economic use, values products useful for enhancing standards of living through the production of new and innovative consumer goods and services, and useful for other production. For example, machine tools used to make other products. This can and does occur despite spin-offs from defense production to civilian production. For example, commercial aircraft, computers. The military priorities of the United States have been such that a vast proportion of its enormous wealth has been sifted off by relatively non-productive military and geopolitical investments, thereby forcing it to lose vital opportunities to build and rebuild the American civilian and commercial economy, and to expand and upgrade the American economic infrastructure. Capital, manpower, and research funds largely dedicated to military and geopolitical priorities essentially expose the underfunded, and inadequately organized economic structure to damaging, often fatal, foreign competition. So remember, Sister Camille and Sister Alima, remember back in the 80s, I remember we used to tease and say, golly, everything is made in China. Remember, like, you look at the tags,
right, that's right.
The toys, everything was made in China, made in China, made in China. Well, you know, Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that they've invested so much into the military, right? They've invested so much into the military that it retarded their ability to produce ordinary products.
That's right.
You know, that would enhance our standards of living, you know. And so, man, you know, I'm thinking about all of the toys. I'm thinking about the machinery, the computers that we use, cars that we drive. A lot of these things are made and produced by foreigners. All right, because we invest billions of dollars in our military. In fact, at the bottom, Dr. Amos Wilson says that, and I believe this was in 1988, he says that $300 billion a year, right? They were paying $300 billion. He says that $300 billion a year bought military security for the United States, but it also diverted resources, capital, the armed forces personnel, materials, skilled labor, engineers, and scientists from non-military production. In 1988, for example, over 65% of federal R&D, research and development money, was allocated to defense, compared with 0.5% to environmental protection and 0.2% to industrial development. Moreover, while engaged in Moscow in an expensive arms race, America has had to compete for world market shares against allies like Japan and Germany, which have allocated smaller percentages of their national resources to the military, thus freeing capital, personnel, and research and development for commercial manufacture, which has undermined parts of the American industrial base. So there you have it. We spend most of our money on, he says 65% of our money was allocated to defense, not to environmental protection, not to industrial development, but on defense. And then these other countries, they'll spend less on defense and more on commercial manufacturing, which gives them an edge in that particular market, in the commercial markets.
Where are we at?
Right, because we're in other people's countries getting there, trying to get control of their resources.
What page are we on? Because I kept getting disconnected.
I just finished reading the top paragraph on page 262. You hear me, sis?
Yeah, I got it, Queen.
Yeah, so basically on this page, well, on page 261 to the top of 262, Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that the U.S. invests more in military more in defense than any other area. You know, for example, he was saying that most of the money, he said 65 in 1988, he said 65% of the federal research and development money was allocated to defense, as compared with 0.5% to environmental protection and 0.2% to industrial development. So he's criticizing, I'm not even gonna say he's criticizing, he's just saying that high defense spending has caused for us to lag behind commercial manufacturing.
That's true.
Yeah. So next, I think we're on industrial and government policy.
Right.
Let's roll.
It says it is not the natural process of technological diffusion alone that has eroded America's technological lead, however. By their massive sale of advanced technology abroad, via licensing agreements, patent sales, and other forms of technology transfer, American corporations are exporting America's future and undermining its industrial base. Top of 263. While such transfers were beneficial to international economic development and to some American multinational corporations, their contribution to devastating foreign and to injurious domestic dislocations and restructuring, which are undermining the economic viability of the African American community and of worldwide African American, cannot be denied. African American corporations sell or transfer the latest generation of advanced technology to Western Europe and East Asian countries. This has permitted sophisticated foreign corporations to develop and innovate these factors and eventually outflank the US in international trade. After reviewing this process, Bloomberg, 1980, concludes, as America loses its comparative advantage in many areas of manufacturing, some US companies are gradually shifting their corporate efforts from manufacturing domestically to developing and marketing technology abroad. Some firms now find it easier and more profitable to simply to transfer manufacturing operations and the advanced technology underlining it abroad. Not all foreign competition is foreign. A measurable proportion of the foreign competition, which is creating problems for the American economy, has been and is created by the investment and industrial policies of the US government and American corporations themselves in order to gain access to foreign markets and to better position themselves to reduce costs so as to compete more effectively with foreign corporations. Many US multinational corporations have been investing billions of dollars in manufacturing facilities abroad. While such investment may earn foreign exchange for the investing corporation and nation, it also may markedly damage the domestic economy for the reasons listed below. And they listed you want to read this, sis, some reasons?
I just wanted to say something really quick. And remember on, and I believe it was page 34. You guys have to correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, page 34 to 35. Well, page 34. Remember on page 34, Dr. Amos Wilson provides us with a chart entitled America's Long History of 100% Racial Quotas in Favor of Whites.
That's right.
On this chart, I don't know if someone wants to like pause it and freeze it and get back to it, you know, if you have the book. But if you read through that chart, he's talking about how African people were systematically locked out of wealth. But I want to bring, I just want to highlight what Sister Alima just read at the top of page 63. And I want to I want to reiterate it. It said, or repeat it. It says, she said, while the sale or transfer of notoriously aged or virtual obsolete technology and know-how to African enterprise move at a snail pace, American corporations sell or transfer the latest generation of advanced technology to Western Europe and East Asian countries. So here again, we're locked out of even the know-how. They don't sell us the technology, even though this technology may be outdated. I'm looking at the bottom of page 262. He's saying that, they develop technologies which they develop patents in the US that originally cost $120 billion. But, they held on to them for, I guess, years and then sold them to the Japanese for $2.7 billion. But they sold it to the Japanese. They didn't sell the know-how to any of the African countries. So not only did they systematically lock us out of wealth here in the US, but they did it internationally. Exactly. So here, even when they sell or transfer their technology, is never sold, or if it is sold to African countries, it is very far and few in between. But they sell their latest generation of advanced technology to Western Europe and East Asian countries. So we look around and we wonder, wow, how is everyone else progressing but African people? Well, African people were systematically locked out of wealth on American soil. And then even today, they keep us underdeveloped here in America through culture, through, miseducation. But then also the African global community is systematically locked out of wealth because even on the continent, they're not giving these people, they're not giving out people the know-how. They don't know. We wonder why, we're wondering why everyone else is experiencing, but they're getting privileged access. This is not me. Somebody has on YouTube. That's not me.
I don't have on anything except for Hangouts.
Wow.
What's happening?
As soon as you address it, it goes away.
Okay. All right. We'll figure it out. But I just wanted to bring, I just wanted to highlight what you said, how even just the know-how, the technology, they deny us access of that. So they systematically lock us out of wealth through various means.
Mm-hmm.
Not giving us land, not giving us radio and television spectrum that's typically allotted, by the FCC. But it also, even with the technology, the know-how, they don't sell it to us. We don't know. And
Right.
so I just wanted to kind of highlight that. But where are we, sis?
We are at the bottom of 263. So Baba was talking about, he says, even though foreign investment, it may earn exchange for investing corporations and nations, but he's saying that it damages us domestically at home. And he gives a little list and he says that it alters the distribution of income in favor of capital as opposed to favor of labor. He says it causes a loss of domestic employment and of government tax revenue, especially where tax laws provide incentives for overseas investments, speeds the diffusion of economic power and technological know-how abroad, increases the domestic market concentration of large firms. And then this next section here, Baba goes on to talk about the foreign investments that the U.S. has made, stemming from, I think, starting at maybe 1975 or something like that, going to like 1992. So that's basically what this little subsection right here is about. I didn't know if anybody wanted to touch on that, but I didn't really highlight anything there. Okay. So at the top of page 265, Queens, it says, moreover, the trend for foreign direct investments by U.S. and foreign corporations is moving increasingly in favor of the development nations. This is also the case regarding portfolio investments. Robert Ross and Kent Traich, in their study of global capitalism, also noted this trend. U.S. foreign investments in manufacturing in third world has grown both absolutely and relatively to investment in traditional sectors. This supports the proposition that spatial mobility has emerged as a new and critical form of competition for U.S. manufacturing capital. A little further down, in contrast to the era of monopoly capitalism, manufacturing capital from other regions is now flowing to the third world in substantial amounts. In fact, investment in manufacturing in the periphery now exceeds investment in raw material extraction. Wow. So he goes on, Ross and Traich say, while the data on foreign direct investment in manufacturing are impressive, they do not capture comprehensively the relocation of manufacturing production to the periphery by core capital. Subcontracting is one means of capital relocation not included in direct investment data, I bet. For example, in the apparel industry, firms frequently subcontract the sewing of garments to independent jobbers located in a low-wage country. The jobbers are not formal subsidiaries of the apparel firm, and the firms may make no direct equity investment in plant and equipment in the low-wage site. Yet, in a very real sense, the payment to a jobber is the functional equivalent of a direct foreign investment, for it is the foreign apparel firm that provides the capital to finance the sewing machines needed to sew the garments. And he goes on to start talking about General Motors and their relationship to with the Koreans. And he says, by acquiring a share of the Korean firm and agreeing upon a joint project to produce a new subcompact car for the U.S. market, GM began to process a shifting production from plants in the U.S. that currently make subcompacts to plants in Korea. Yet, because the Korean firm has existing plants, the amount of capital flow recorded is less than would have occurred if GM had to build new plants in Korea.
That Detroit.
Exactly, Queens. That's exactly what I was thinking about when they took all those businesses away and hurt the people of Detroit.
Right.
That's right. That's right, Fat Queen. So at the bottom of the page, Queens, as can be readily inferred from these figures, the overwhelming bulk of FDI, talking about the foreign direct investment, involves investments from the industrial U.S. to industrialized countries elsewhere. These countries are ethnically, predominantly Caucasian or Asian. Africa receives very, very little, reflecting a lack of U.S. government and industrial sector interest in that continent. In fact, direct foreign investments in sub-Saharan Africa amounted to only 0.46%, of the total U.S. FDI abroad, and this was 1990. We can easily see that the nature of the American investment and trade relations follow the color line in rapidly decreasing proportion from white to in between to black. Consequently, the trend of ethnic power and economic relations, which inhere domestically, is also reflected by U.S. foreign trade and investment patterns abroad.
Okay, and I know we're getting ready to move on to the next section, the last section, actually. I think we only have like 2 or 3 pages.
Yes.
We have like 2 pages left, 2 to 3 pages left at this point. But I just wanted to go back to page 264 and highlight this. Many of us believe that when the U.S. Invests overseas, we'll say, oh, and I think Sister Camille said it earlier, like, oh, the labor is cheaper, and so we'll invest over there. This paragraph was kind of eye-opening for me because I thought the same thing. He says in 1991, U.S. manufacturers invested largely in the industrialized countries of Europe and Canada. As reported in the journal, a study conducted by the firm of Ernst & Young notes that less than 1/3 of the 659 major investments abroad by U.S. manufacturers in 1991 went to countries with low labor rates, contradicting the popular notion that U.S. manufacturers would automatically elect to invest in countries where labor is cheapest. If given the opportunity, these countries use their foreign investments chiefly to gain access to markets, apparently looking to build markets shared in industrialized countries by accessing customers, technology, and skills, as well as in responding to financial incentives and low corporate tax rates offered by these countries. U.S. countries placed more than half of their investments abroad in Europe. The most popular single recipient of U.S. investment, however, was Canada, where 84 of the 659 major investments were made. The journal reported that Mexico and the now disbanded Soviet Union were the only countries with lowly hourly wages that were among the top 10 choices where U.S. manufacturers chose to invest in 1991. So it's not that they're looking for cheap labor when they invest outside of, when they invest in these other countries. He's saying that they're looking for, they want to build a market that's already shared. They want to build a market share in these industrialized countries by accessing their customers. He says technology and skill. So, most of the money that was invested overseas were invested in third world countries for the purposes of low labor rates. It's less than 1/3, to countries with low labor rates. So when we say that they're just investing in countries looking for low labor rates, is really, I would call that a financial myth in a sense.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that, or to add that to the discourse.
That's true.
All right.
Where we at now, Queens? Jobs moving abroad.
Yes.
Okay. The magnitude of U.S. foreign direct investment, which involves the founding, development, and expansion of industries abroad, the entering into joint functions of various types with foreign corporations, the moving of manufacturing facilities abroad, and the like by American transnational corporations, ultimately leads to change in the quantity and character of both the domestic industrial sector and labor force. U.S. foreign direct investment, along with that of industrialized Western and some Asian nations, have led to the emergence of a truly global labor force, talented and capable of accomplishing just about anything, anywhere. The global redistribution of industry brought on by current investment trends and other national and global economic structural dynamics has led to the deindustrialization of much of inner city America, the post-industrial age, the stagnation of the growth of the American manufacturing workforce, which has not expanded much beyond its 1946 level, despite a five-fold increase in productivity, and has at least since the 1960s, this enabled the richest economy in the world to provide significant full employment at livable wages to lift the 30 to 40% of the African American population above the government's anemic poverty and near poverty thresholds. As employment of African Americans stagnate and decline, American direct foreign investments appear to be creating jobs abroad, not only in so-called developing and third world nations where wages and monetary and political costs are low. This is what Sister Dr. Maat was just saying, but in high wage countries like Canada and in Europe. So it's more so based off of where they feel like the best business deal is, not necessarily if it's a poor country. Because if that's the case, well, Africa has a shit ton of them that they could have chosen to, like you said, give the know-how to and give the business to and do the investments with. So, okay, where are we here? Top of page 268.
Yep.
Okay, the rearrangement of the global workforce as well as the global redistribution of industry have led some experts to predict that it is a fallacy to think that the industry will increase employment overall in the Western world. Western European and American employment will just shrink and shrink in an orderly way, like farming at the turn of the century. Fortune, Ibid. While discussing the movement of jobs and industrial facilities abroad, we must be careful not to be left with the impression that such jobs are mainly going to low-wage, unsophisticated workers and managers. Quite to the contrary. Fortune magazine reports that increasingly sophisticated work is indeed being parceled out to faraway nations where labor forces are exceedingly capable. It indicates that a vice president in a firm specializing in global manufacturing notes that new factories abroad, even in low-wage countries, tend to be more labor efficient than their counterparts in the country's home country, in the company's home country. Okay, where we at? Next, not the next paragraph after that. This trend in industrial and job movement abroad, as outlined, will most likely be intensified if efforts to eliminate trade barriers between Canada, Mexico, and the United States are successful. The North American Free Trade Agreement, other words, NAFTA, to which these efforts refer, may further erode well over 100,000 or more jobs, especially blue-collar jobs, which describes the larger proportion of jobs in the African American community.
Now, didn't they open that up, NAFTA?
Yes.
Wasn't that Obama?
No, that was Clinton. That was Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Wasn't that Bill Clinton? He was the one that signed the NAFTA agreement, right? The National Foreign Trade Agreement. I think that was during the Clinton administration. Did Obama do something with that, or
he did something with it? Let me go. Yeah. I'm about to look.
I have to look it up.
I'm about to look
I'm sure.
Look it up, sis. I think that it was initially signed by the Clinton administration. Because I was waiting for Dr. Amos Wilson to mention it, especially when you're talking about, foreign investments. I was like, okay, is he going to talk about, NAFTA? Like, I was waiting for him to get to it. He absolutely did touch on NAFTA.
It was President George Bush.
Oh, it was Bush. It wasn't
not Junior, the first Bush.
Really? Type in NAFTA and Clinton and see what pop up, sis.
Different presidents, every president, a lot of presidents have ratified it and add different things to it, but it was initially drafted by President George H. Bush.
Okay, so then Clinton did something, and so does it say that Obama did something with it also, sis?
I see it said President Clinton, he had refused to sign NAFTA. All the presidents talk about NAFTA. Trump talks about it all the time.
Yeah, I want to read up on that, like the actual agreement. What does it say? I know it opened up trade relations.
It's a trade agreement. So, each president adds their own little spin to it, so you can probably find a lot of presidents who added their little touch on it.
Right. U.S. companies increase exports to Mexico.
Mm-hmm. It's a trade agreement, right? Where we at, Queens? But you know, a lot of different presidents had issues with it because, like it says here, it took away different jobs and different things like that per agreement. So that's why every president tries to come in and either get rid of it or switch it up. But no one's actually been able to get rid of it yet.
Absolutely, sis. Absolutely. So you finished reading, you read to the powerlessness of government to resolve human
Oh
problems?
no, not yet.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so where was I? So last paragraph where it says we must keep in mind, I'm just going to start here where it says one thing is certain, however, the America industrial profile will be markedly changed. It could be that the shift in the American economic landscape in the long run may be a shift for the better. He's talking about NAFTA. On to the paragraph above the powerlessness of government. The U.S. economy is being shaped profoundly by a global economy over which it is having less direct control and against which it can do less and less to protect its own workforce and maintain its vaunted high standard of living. The steady stream of remarkably large layoffs, cutbacks, and terminations by big corporations such as IBM, Westinghouse, Boeing underlines the continuing turmoil in America's corporate economy. And that was in 1993. And as we've seen, of course, and we know that a lot of companies have shut down since then. And now because of the dominance of the internet and corporations like Amazon and eBay, a lot of businesses or stores rather that typically had actual stores, they have to close their stores and just do business online now because that's how far technology has come and people don't even really go to the malls and stores like that anymore, which of course causes more people to lose their jobs in turn also. But we're at the powerlessness of government if anybody wants to take over, Queens.
Oh no, we're done.
We're done, right? That's it. Oh, that's 269. Okay, yes.
When we say we're done, we got 10 people. Look, 10 people watching. I don't want them to just click off like, oh, the sisters are done. Click.
Okay.
That's it. You know, people would just start clicking out. You know, it's Sunday, so people would get out of there. But
Don't blame them.
I did want to add, Alpha Dow Empress King said that it was signed in 1993. He said it was signed in 1993, right? He said by Bill Clinton into law in 1993. So that's what I'm reading what he wrote in the chat room.
No, that's not what it says. It says in 1992, NAFTA was signed by President George H. Bush,
in 92,
Mexican President Salinas, and Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. It was a trade agreement between Canada and Mexico and United States. It was signed in 92, and that was by Bush. Tell the brother, look it up.
Bro, Alpha Dell, let me see. He's in the chat room. He didn't say anything yet, but that was his comment. I'm just thanking everybody for tuning in. Help us spread the word about the RAM Book Club. Before we get on out of here, Sister Alima, let them know where to find you, sis.
Oh, okay. All right, family. Peace and love. You can find me, as you know, on LiliLaPoeteSpeaks.com. I'm about to share the screen for you, and you can go on over there. Of course, you will have to go on over there, family, every week, so you can get the links if you want to join the panel, or this thing is not working. If you want to join the panel, or if you want to be in the active discussion link. Yeah, my screen share button is not working. But the page is www.LiliLaPoeteSpeaks.com, family. And you can head on over there, of course, as I said, to grab those links every Sunday. They'll be up there early for you. So you can grab the links. And then you can also head on over to, you can get some things from Meltrack. Yeah, this thing is not, it's just lagging. You can get some things from Meltrack, family. You can get my new book, Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1. You can get my husband's book. There's no point of screen share now. Now you're all late.
You put it up, sis, on my end.
Is it? Can y'all see it? Can you see it?
Yes. Yeah, I see it now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, family, you can head on over to LiliLaPoeteSpeaks.com. We have a marketplace.
It's not showing anymore. It's not showing anymore, sis. It was showing and then it went out. Like now I see you.
Okay, it doesn't matter. As long as they go over to the page, they don't have to see it right now. It's www.LiliLaPoeteSpeaks.com, family. You can go on over, you can subscribe, you can check out the blog, check out our latest African poetry series. There's some good information there, family. Check out the marketplace. Also, you can check out my latest interview that I did on Do the Knowledge Radio that was a really good, powerful interview. You can check that out as well, family. I have that posted. And peace and love. Thanks for joining us.
Sister Camille.
Family, my name is Camille Gaynor Jones. I am a drummer, a producer, and I give drum lessons and music lessons. I like if I can get. Can you hear me? Am I going away?
Yeah, you went away and then you came back in. So let's go strong while we have you.
All right. So, can you see my sharing my screen? Can you see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Here you can go to my website, www.camillegaynorjones.com. You can check out my latest CD, A Girl from Queens. So I have T-shirts for sale which say "Lead a Creative Life."
Okay.
And if you have any young drummers in the house, I have an instructional DVD entitled "The Adventures of Drummette." The Adventures of Drummette. And also I have a signature snare drum for that young drummer that's coming up. Household.
Wow, I love it. I love it.
I just like to play a second of this DVD of my video from one of my singles.
Yes.
Can y'all see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Rocking out.
Is it me? Sister Alima.
Am I can you see me?
No, I can't see you, but it like froze. Like
Yeah, we couldn't even see your video.
Yeah, I was over here jamming a little bit. Yeah, I was jamming a little bit, and then the screen just froze.
Am I live?
Oh Lord, I don't know why sis didn't get one of us to play it. I don't know why you still relying on that energy. You still got faith. That's all right.
Oh damn!
Hey, Sister Alima, Sister Camille got the dial up over there. She dealing with the dial up.
I know, right? Earthquake days. Oh yeah.
Dial up.
Oh, I got the snail mail. I will try again next week. I'm gonna work it out.
That was a YouTube video, Sister Camille, so we can go on YouTube.
Y'all be messing with me hard over there.
We can check out the video on YouTube, right, Sister Camille?
Yes, you can. It's called Boom Bap.
It's called,
and it's also on my page, on my website.
Okay, we can check it out. Listen,
go Boom Bap.
Absolutely.
Y'all laughing at me again?
No, you're not laughing, sis.
No.
Go ahead and share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
They go real pro.
Can you all see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Fantastic. Please head over to edanimeproductions.com/shop to get your latest Ed Anime production products. Currently, we have 2 films available for your babies. We have Meltrek episode 1 and Meltrek episode 2. Meltrek episode 1, Exploring Ancient Africa, is about a group of kids who go back in time to explore pre-diaspora Africa. The objective of this film is to teach our babies that the history of people of African descent does not begin with chattel slavery, but that it begins with humanity and civilization. We also have Meltrek episode 2, Exploring the Pre-Columbian Americas, which is a film that, again, we take the same group of children back in time to explore the Pre-Columbian Americas. We teach them about the Aboriginal people of the Americas, the Olmecs, Mayans, Aztecs. We teach them about the mound building communities, Hopewell, Adena, and Mississippian cultures. I love this film. I mean, I actually think, like, if you get Meltrek episode 1 and then get episode 2, you'll see that we stepped it up like 200% with Meltrek episode 2. And I think that Meltrek episode 3 is going to be phenomenal. But anyway, please support, I call it the Meltrek movement. We have to take back, we have to, as parents, take control of what our children watch. We have to understand that our children are great imitators. There's a quote out there that says our children are great imitators. So let's give them something great to imitate. Instead of sitting there letting Disney and Nickelodeon Cartoon Network brainwash your child, won't you just invest in Meltrek? You know, invest in Meltrek, a cartoon that teaches your children self-knowledge, that increases self-awareness, promotes favorable self-images, and increases self-esteem. To me, that would be the better investment, because we all know that the animations produced by those other companies, there are a lot of political and social messages that are being inculcated in the minds of our babies. And so we got to watch with our children. We got to be mindful of what we put in front of our babies. And Meltrek is a wonderful product to expose your child to. We also have the Meltrek storybook, which should be available. It's showing out of stock on our website, but it should be available within the next 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to this to drop. A lot of people are. Phenomenal storybook. We actually go into more detail in the storybook than we did in the film. So in the storybook, we really break down. We give a synopsis of. Okay, so in the film, we mentioned different kings and queens, but we kind of brush over them. Like we threw out the names of, like, you know, King Narmer and King Hatshepsut and Queen Tai, or Queen Tai, but we didn't go into detail. But with the storybook, we had an opportunity to give children, you know, a description of each of those kings and queens that we named in Meltrek episode 1, and even more. We didn't talk about Tutmosis III in Meltrek in the film. We didn't talk about Akhenaten in the film, and so we give children a little bit more detail in the storybook than we did in the actual film. So the storybook should be available in 2 weeks. You know, please support. We have Meltrek t-shirts, so if your child has a favorite character, you can go to Meltrek. You can go to edanimeproductions.com and create your own Meltrek t-shirt with your favorite character. We also have hoodies available. It's getting cold outside, and a lot of kids love to wear hoodies. You can visit edanimeproductions.com and get the Meltrek hoodie in different colors. I think we have black, white, and pink available. Let me see if we got pink, black, yep, and blue available. So please visit edanimeproductions.com. Last week, I played the 2-minute trailer for episode 1. And so this week, I want to play the trailer for Meltrek episode 2. So here we go. 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes of your time. Here we go.
This fall, Ed Anime Productions returns with Meltrek episode 2, exploring the pre-Columbian Americas. Learn about the Native Americans and the people who came to the Americas long before Columbus. This once hidden history has never been told like this before. Join Bunchi, Chen, Percy, Michelle, and Jesse as they are sent back in time by their magical teacher, Miss Lawton, to learn about the Americas. They begin their adventure in North America by the Ohio River. There, they meet a young Adina girl named Winona. Using hip-hop, funky beats, and rhymes, Winona teaches the children about the early civilizations of the Americas. They learn about the mound builders.
Starting with the mound builders in the north.
The
Olmecs to oversee indigenous people.
The Mayans.
After the Olmecs came the Mayans.
The Aztecs.
Aztecs came next, follow their footsteps. Same culture, same intellect, but had their own yes.
The Incas.
The Incas, a great nation in South America.
And much, much more. Witness the mental and spiritual transformations of the characters. Not only will they transform, but you will also as you travel with Meltrek. Let's resurrect the spirit of our ancestors inside all of us and recall that we come from greatness so we can be great.
We're going to whatever time zone where our ancestors always sat on the throne. Yeah, and I'm talking about you and me. I mean, we should consider greatest of royalty. So rise up, start the daughters of a KB land. It's time to claim our riches and take back our land. So come and take this journey, and when you come back, tell your friends and family all about the Meltrek. Meltrek. track.
Sister Alima, you being a very African-centered woman, I know you caught the symbolism. Like, look at this. I know. Hold on, let me see. Let me go here. Look at this, sis. Oops. Oh, man, I don't even know what I just did.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, hold on. Oh, I don't know what I did, Sister Alima. Right here at the end. Look at that. Look at that. You see, you caught that, right? That was Seneferu. Hold on. With Sean P is watching. I know he caught it. Right here, sis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all through there, sis. Like, it's all through there. It's all through there. Hold on. Oh, man, I can't. Okay, so I wanted to show you something else, but I don't think I can find it without going back through like the whole. There we go. There's Abu Bakr right here, or Bubakari. And then you have the Dafuna canoe. So we're teaching, I'm telling you, when folks question whether this is an African-centered cartoon, I just say, well, did you watch it? You get what I'm saying, Sister Alima? Like, did you actually watch it? Because if you watched it, you would know better. But anyway, you know, thank you for listening. That concludes my little spill. Anything else to say? Anything else left, ladies?
Nope.
No? All right. So see you guys next week, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a beautiful and productive week. Peace and Black Power.
Love ya.
Ashe.